Well, we are on the outskirts of Lagos here in the Algarve on what is day 3 of the German police-led operation to find any clues that lead to the whereabouts of the British 3-year-old girl Madeleine McCann, 18 years on from when she went missing.
Welcome back. German police investigating the disappearance of Madeleine McCann are carrying out new searches in Portugal this week.
We're on a hilltop outside Praia de Luz where this morning German police with assistance from Portuguese police have begun searching for any trace of Madeleine McCann.
At the start of the week, we were told that the search site was going to be a large 50-hectare area of land that the German police were going to be looking at. But as time's gone on, it's become clear that the main focus of their efforts is actually just a handful of these derelict buildings.
And as we now know, that search has been completed. The Germans have gone home with nothing to show for it. Meanwhile, amidst this search, amidst this whole brouhaha, a new theory has emerged. Is it legit?
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science. Now, we're going to be talking about this new theory. According to the Daily Mail, German prosecutors have been accused by Portuguese media of failing to properly investigate a claim that's emerged just in the last few days that Madeleine McCann was run over by a drunk driver. Ironic, isn't it? It's ironic because it's the very same allegation British authorities and British media made about the Portuguese right in the beginning. And I think one has to take the question on the chin. Why haven't German authorities followed up on this report? When it came up, they were in the area, they had an extra day. What did they have to lose? Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Many thanks to the many of you who hit the thanks button. I really do appreciate it. Remember, I traveled to Praia de Luz and I was actually there on May 3rd on the 18-year anniversary this year. If you find this analysis worthwhile, you can also hit the thanks button and let's get started. Now, I think the answer to the question is simple. The reason the German prosecutor wouldn't want to investigate a lead that leads somewhere else, it would be doing the work of a potential defense lawyer, effectively to exonerate his prime suspect. That is what is driving this whole latest search, this whole latest investigation. Make no mistake, this entire brouhaha around the search is about pressure, and it's about trying to pin a crime on Bruckner, any crime, so that he isn't released from prison this September. In a sense, I can understand what the German cops are trying to do, but I think their enthusiasm to keep their sleazebag behind bars is clouding their judgment. The reason I took an interest in this theory was really for one reason, not the theory around Bruckner, the theory around this drunk driver. And it's because it addresses an idea you don't see very often, which is that Madeleine's body may have been disposed in the sea, not on land, in water. And if the Germans had simply taken that idea seriously, who knows, perhaps they could have found something after all. One of the few positives I think one can take out of this most recent search for Madeleine, which I believe cost at least £300,000, just think about that, £300,000, is just how difficult it is in practice to dig a hole in the substrate on and surrounding the Roja Negra. When I was there, I actually walked the Roja Negra again. Some of the footage you're seeing is from the Roja Negra. Now, you have to appreciate the ground underfoot, and you do when you're actually there. I've been to many similar volcanic landscapes, Santorini late last year, Lanzarote and Tenerife a few weeks ago, and as I say, of course, the Roja Negra itself. And I can tell you, it's tough to find harder surface crust than in this volcanic terrain. You can actually see further signs of that volcanic terrain through the water, those dark smears under the seawater, which you can see from the top of the Roja Negra. And I think there's a huge insight in that. If someone was in Luz and they did want to hide a body, they wouldn't try to bury it. This is why this theory this latest report is opportune, if for only one reason. It asks us to consider looking somewhere that is very seldom considered, the sea. What the German searchers seem to miss is that while sweating and struggling to make a dent in the iron-hard volcanic substrate of the Roja Negra, right over their shoulders, all along the search area, are vertiginous cliffs that drop sheer to the sea. Wouldn't it be much easier to dispose of a body by simply dropping it down there? And it's also much harder to even get to that area. It's almost impossible to reach the area below the cliff from the top of the Roja Negra, and I've never seen anyone trying to hike along the treacherous tumble of rocks immediately below these cliffs. In addition, another reason why the search area is such an awful choice to hide a body is because there's such a steady stream of traffic. Hikers, cyclists, joggers, just ordinary tourists moving from Luge to Lagos or Lagos to Luge, or halfway there and back from both sides. With so much public foot traffic, it's not a very remote or private area after all, which is why the cops had such a difficult job trying to keep the media at bay. And the media were able to drive virtually to where these searches were conducted. So why dispose of a body here when there are much better places, more remote areas than this? Do you see why local knowledge is so important? Now, before I deal with other elements of this theory, let's first look at the cost of the last search. Why did it cost £300,000? Well, because remember, you have to fly 30 Germans somewhere, pay for their accommodation, pay for their food, and also pay for the rental of big, expensive earth-moving equipment as well as other specialized equipment. You also have to pay some of the experts you have on the ground, possibly by the hour. And that brings us to this new theory. Let's deal with it now. According to the Daily Mail, Portuguese officers allegedly received a tip about a British man who was covering up a dark secret about his German wife. Now, if we keep an open mind, what's interesting with this theory is the analogies in the theory to other theories. There's this idea of killing someone by accident. There's this idea of being under the influence. And there's this idea of hiding a body using a vehicle and doing that successfully without anyone seeing this take place. There were plenty of rumors of so many bottles of wine being drunk while Madeleine was on holiday. And here we see someone who may have not been just intoxicated, but not thinking clearly in the aftermath, and thus compromised, did something they might not have otherwise have done. Also, one might rightly say, if it was an accident, why didn't they just call the police? Well, if someone drove drunk and killed someone, it wasn't an accident, was it? It wasn't just an accident. There was something else associated with it. There was definitely a degree of negligence and one could even say recklessness involved. It always irritates me when people say, if it was an accident, why would they need to cover it up? The same question comes up in the Ramsey case. Well, if you're asking that question, you clearly haven't thought about it enough. It's because there's something else the accident might expose that could get the person into trouble, and this might cause them to lose more than they want to lose. In terms of this theory, the something else would be driving under the influence and killing someone, and that would effectively get you into a lot of trouble. According to the Daily Mail, German authorities rejected a Portuguese request to use an undercover police officer to try to befriend the wife and firm up their suspicions. That's according to the Portuguese daily Correio da Manhã. And here again is that sense of political agendas where one institution doesn't like being told what to do by another. What is it? Pride? Resources? I think it has more to do with the objective of the German investigation, which is to get dirt on Bruckner. That's all it is. If you think about it, it's not to solve the Madeleine McCann case. It's to convict Bruckner of a crime, any crime, and if they can link him to Madeleine McCann, well, that will work for them as well. According to the Daily Mail, the report, which claims a sister of the British husband made the tip-off to police in the UK in 2018. So this is really a 7-year-old theory. It's not really anything new either. In the same way that the Bruckner case isn't really new, it's something that came up 5 years ago in a big way, but was actually with us all along. It was something that was there 18 years ago. And the Portuguese investigated it, followed it through, and dismissed it. Now, according to this report, German prosecutors were asked to authorize a covert police operation with someone posing as a friend of the woman's and trying to get her to confess, but the courts refused. We know the Portuguese cops also wanted to covertly bug the villa the McCanns rented, and a judge refused to grant that order. I have to say, it certainly would have been fascinating knowing what the McCanns said behind closed doors while those dog searches were happening at the time in July, August, and going into September 2007. You know, that period when the tide of suspicion started to turn against them. According to the Daily Mail, it was decided to continue solely with the investigation into suspect Christian Bruckner, rejecting other possibilities. Correio de Mana said the mystery couple were alcoholics and the wife had been drinking near the Ocean Club on the night Madeleine went missing. I do wonder how Correio de Mana got hold of this information. I wouldn't be surprised if the somewhat disgruntled Portuguese leaked it to them because of being a bit unhappy with what the German search says about Portuguese competence. According to the Daily Mail, it also claimed the couple's neighbor had told police she heard rowing the day after the 3-year-old disappeared. This also reminds us of Madeleine, who was heard crying late into the night, 1 or 2 nights before she disappeared. No one really asked about the checking system on that night, or on other nights for that matter. How long was the time between checks on that night, the night that the upstairs neighbor heard crying downstairs, going on, in her words, for over an hour? For now, I'm not going to take it further than that. We are going to look into this theory more as an analogy to other ideas in the next episode, so look out for that. Thank you for listening. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys next time.